r/AskReddit. Non-Americans of Reddit, what confuses you the most about America? Why is there space under the bathroom stalls? I was at a wedding once and my friend was taking a shit and some small child tried to crawl through the space under the stall wall and my friend was so shocked he reflexively kicked the child's face. That's not even the worst of it. Why can you see people through the gaps in the hinges? Most awkward eye contact ever. Why everybody, when talking about income, calculates how much a person makes in a year instead of monthly like we do in my country. Just convention. It's how we're used to hearing about it. Also, different jobs pay differently. So I get a check every month, but I think my dad gets one every other week. Some people get them weekly, others on other schedules. Discussing it by year makes it pretty easy to divide up by your own pay periods. Edit. Since some people have asked, I don't get a physical paycheck. I use it as a kind of legacy term. I get the money deposited in my account, but in my mind it's my paycheck. Also, a lot of people have contract jobs and the pay varies each month, so it's convenient to calculate the annual income. Should I take off my shoes or not? Look at your host's feet. Just ask. It's 100% normal to simply say, do you want me to take my shoes off? Look by the door, lol. I wonder why everywhere I go on the internet at least 50% of the people are American. We have no lives. It's easy to access here. Fast food restaurants like McDonald's offer Wi-Fi. If you go to Walmart supercenters, they also have a free Wi-Fi to use when there. Some people park outside places and use Wi-Fi where it's free. Might not be fast, but you have access. Because you go to very American places on the internet. I'm sure if you went somewhere not English that percent plummets. From England here. I grew up in a county called West Yorkshire, a semi-rural, semi-urban, working-class county which, along with the rest of Yorkshire, seems completely unique when compared to the other English counties. There is so much slang, grouped and contracted contractions, wouldn't, want, shouldn't, shan't, and the accent here isn't always understandable. Yorkshire slang, especially that spoken by the older generations, sounds and looks like a completely different language, even more so when spelled phonetically. It never ceases to amaze me how easy it is to understand the majority of Americans. They speak with so much clarity, non-specific slang, and the accent just helps. It reminds me of the news reporters. American here. Lived in Burnley, I'm sure you know it, for 6 months for work. Had trouble understanding some folks in Lancashire area. Then one weekend I went to Wales. Forget it. It was terrible, and don't get me started on the Geordies from Newcastle. Overall though, it was a few people I had trouble understanding. It was always the older folks. Most of the younger folks were much more easier to understand. Overall I had an amazing time there. I also visited your neck of the woods there as well. Love the countryside. Why is one Kansas, and the other not Arkansas, Kansas? Edit. Also, why is Worcester pronounced Worcester, not Worcester? I studied an MA and this still baffles me. I am confusion. Supposedly it has to do with the fact that they were named for native tribes, but one was named by the French and the other English, and the French don't pronounce the S at the end of Arkansas, so it eventually got its current pronunciation. Who knows how accurate that is though? You'll have to blame the UK for the second one. Worcester, England is pronounced the same way. Many cities in Massachusetts have goofy pronunciations, even if they look like they shouldn't. Shrewsbury, for example, is pronounced like it's a 2-syllable word. Why American news are all a bunch of gossip platforms for rumors that no one cares about. I'd either, but someone must pay attention, otherwise they'd go out of business. Oh good, we're writing the next BuzzFeed listicle. Don't forget Reddit compilation videos on it. Ha 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 ha. Non-Americans are listing things they don't understand about America. Click here for the top 25. I don't know if this is just about America or most first world countries, but why is living with your parents a bad thing or laughable? Because for the longest you could, and so it became an expectation. Post WW2 there were well-paying jobs everywhere, and land was cheap and abundant. Nowadays it's a little different. Cost of living is higher, so it's more commonplace to live with roommates for an extended period of time, and it's also more common to move back in with parents at some point. It's still considered sort of shameful, but lots of people end up doing it, so it's not as big of a deal. I think in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand, it's more common to stay with your parents into your 20s. In the US, it's seen as being a failure because you can't pay for your own housing. I agree with you though, living with your parents isn't bad. I lived with my parents, mostly, until I was 24, and my parents housed my grandma for years, which I thought was sweet. If you've got a good, supportive family, there should be no problem with helping each other. The lack of electric kettles. Our electric outlets have lower voltage, so it takes longer for the kettle to heat up than yours does, so the marginal benefit isn't as great. I have one though, just not as snappy as ones I've used overseas. Every US home has an electric coffee maker instead. Our coffee consumption is substantially larger than tea. Having a tea kettle is still rather standard, but we definitely drink way more coffee. How your blood alcohol limit for what counts as drunk driving is so high. 4x as high as Sweden's. That's a bit of a simplification, and it depends upon where you are. In my state of Washington, between 0.02 and 0.08 is officer's discretion as to whether you're arrested for DUI. Also, if you have a CDL, commercial license, the limit is 0.4 regardless of the vehicle you're driving. It varies from state to state. For example, Utah has a "not a drop" law, which will result in a DUI for even a 0.1% back. As someone from India, the possibilities many Americans feel they have is both confusing to me and admirable. I'm 28 and I already feel the rest of my life is going to work on a rigid schedule. Most people here have very less risk-taking ability. But I read of American stories like this guys who worked as a masser for a year, then as a swimming coach, then suddenly got into law school and become a lawyer. After hitting his 40s, he got interested in programming, so he became a programmer. Reading biographies of famous American businessmen brings out many such stories. Someday I'm going to open a pie shop just because I can. Sometimes when I think about what freedom means, that's what I think of. If I wanted to, I can go and open a pie shop. Would it be successful? I don't know. But I'd have a little fun for a while. I'm American and I also feel that the rest of my life is going to work on a rigid schedule. It's universal for some of us. You are not alone. Valet parking. Why would I want some stranger messing with my car? I can park my own car, thank you very much. Since everyone here drives, finding parking in a dense area can be a massive pain in the ass. So people who can afford it will park valet because they can just drop it off at the curb right in front of where they're going. That said, I agree with you and never park valet, not just because I'm not rich, but also because fuck you, stay out of my car. I'll give you an example where it makes perfect sense. I know of a hospital with free valet during normal hours. As a patient, that's great. You're picking up your loved one. They can't walk far due to injury or surgery or whatever, and the car is right there at the door for you. Or you're dropping your nana off but actually want to walk her in, not just drop her at the door and go park. But they actually rolled it out for their own benefit. Because someone would show up to pick up their aunt who just had a procedure and could walk a bit but not much. And knowing this, they'd pull the car up to the entrance, run up to get her, and get held up by the checkout process. Meanwhile their car, and everyone's car who's doing the same thing, is in the damn way. So for the price of a couple FT employees during business hours, you make the experience better for patients, and eliminate the problem of abandoned cars at the door. Tipping was forbidden, as a side note. It confuses me how come American-style homes are so tidy outside. I am always amazed when I use Google Street View to stroll around some random road in the U.S. I wonder why and how the houses and backyards look so clean, with newly mown Bermuda grass and well-painted roofs and walls. I can't help but compare this to my country, which is a developing one. I'm thinking what's wrong with our citizens such that when I use Street View on our streets, they are usually filthy. Ordinary, American-style homes can only be found in high-class villages and subdivisions here. Edit. Corrected fourth word in the second paragraph from by to but. It really depends of the area of America. The poorer neighborhoods are a lot messier. We take great pride in our lawns, not gardens. That's where flowers grow. I get 2 days off a week and usually spend at least one of them cutting grass, edging the driveway and road, working in the garden. Again, only a small fraction of the yard, exclusively the part where flowers and vegetables grow. Nothing is more American than sitting outside, having a barbecue and some cheap beer, and enjoying that fresh cut grass smell. Every state works so differently, they could have been different countries without needing a president. Edit. I have understood what you guys have been trying to teach me. But the laws are so different, the taxes are so different, but still confusing, the education system is more or less the same, mostly autonomous and free till high school. I mean states have most of the power. I live in India, but here central government has most of the power, which sucks, and the central government can make a state ruled by a different party look bad by misusing their powers, but that is hard to do in the US. I mean, US is kinda good but confusing if you move between states. That was the original intent. That was kind of the original idea. The federal government had virtually no power under the Articles of Confederation, and even under the Constitution it doesn't have all that much power. It has simply usurped more and more of it over the years. Initially, the US looked a lot more like the EU does now than a single country. Why the water in the toilet is so high, and the walls of the stall are so high. Edit 1, it is the gap at the bottom that is too high, not the top of the wall. Edit 2, thank you all for the replies. For those extolling the virtues of American flushes, I have one word: splashback. American toilets use siphonic flushing. You may be used to wash down toilets. Different mechanisms. We poop big. How nice and friendly most Americans are. I did a road trip all across United States in 2011 with 3 friends. In any city we were visiting, the second we would unfold a map, 2-3 persons stopped and asked us if we needed help. In the end of the trip, we would fake unfolding the map to actually ask people for directions. It worked every time. Much love from Canada. Those news networks do not show how cool our southern neighbors are. American here. I really need to check out Canadian news now to see what they're saying about us. This is like the 4th time I've seen a Canadian say this lol. The news portrays Americans as a bunch of ignorant, gun-toting rednecks. But when I travel in the US, they are really nice, friendly and helpful. My car broke down while leaving the Mount Rushmore parking lot and I couldn't get it started again. I must have had 30 other people offer to help in any way possible. Either by letting me use their cell phones to call someone, or look under the hood for the trouble or offer me a ride. I was thankful to everyone. I came away with a good feeling about Americans and turned a bad problem into a not-so-bad problem. Thanks from a Canadian. The news only shows the interesting stuff, which is people being dicks to other people. Even the people the news ridicules, like the rednecks, are very nice and helpful. This surprises me being from the Northeast where you don't see many rednecks. I mean the area of the Northeast I'm in. As a self-proclaimed redneck, I always stop for stranded motorists if I can spare the time. You never know when someone may need an extra pair of hands. I even bought gas for a stranded young couple and their kids. They ran out of gas in a Walmart parking lot and I went off home, got a can of gas, and gave them enough to get down to the gas station. The lady was so shocked when she asked what my major was, and I told her, I'm 17 and I'm in high school. She couldn't believe a teenager would be so nice. But it was just a gallon of gas, and her kids were very upset, obviously. So I figured it was my time to do a good deed for that day. I guarantee at least half the 30 people who offered to help you in rural South Dakota were indeed gun-toting rednecks. I don't know if this is true, but from the outside it seems like it. You sell everything through sex, but then there is somebody's nipple in TV and it is so bad. You are so nice and very chatty. I, American, was with a group of English co-workers at a bar at a trade show in Atlanta. When we were ordering a drink, a patron at the bar started speaking to me. We have a nice normal 15-minute conversation as we waited for our drinks at a busy bar. When this concluded, my English co-workers were like, "Where did you know him from?" I am like, "What do you mean?" They are like, "You didn't know him. You spoke to a stranger for over 15 minutes?" I was like, "Yes." They told me the only way that would happen in the UK is if the man at the bar was trying to sell something. I was dumbfounded. I am like, you go to the bar for dinner for the social interaction. If you wanted to be alone, just order room service. I specifically sit at the bar on business trips to get some human interaction. They could not believe it. How nice, friendly and welcoming the vast majority of Americans are. The 24/7 news portrait quite the opposite. Statistically, it's tough to find anything that we Americans hate more than our own news media. Bad news travels the fastest and sells the most. US as an all-around nice uneventful day isn't going to be as captivating as Florida man detonates nuclear weapon after he finds pickle in his Happy Meal. Most news networks only show what they want you to see, at least in the US.